Okay, we're live on YouTube and Facebook again.
Love being live. Welcome to the Pistons Talk Podcast on YouTube. I'm your host, Lance Caprosi. Follow me on Twitter at Lance Caprosi. Promise all of you guys watching and listening, I'm worth it. My co-host, Anthony, you can follow him on Twitter and all social media platforms at Pistons Talk if you haven't already. He started the brand. I hitched my wagon to it. Let's get this started. We have an update for all of you guys on your favorite Detroit Piston, Cade Cunningham. The rehab going well. He can move on it. He's shooting jumpers. I think he said he's lifting more weights. It's going well for him. We're going to have a stronger, better Cade that's just going to – that drive and kick game between him and Jaden Ivey is going to be phenomenal. He's going to be a standout catch-and-shoot player next year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you caught that Bally interview.
Yeah, a little bit of it.
Can't remember who we were playing. I think it was the Nuggets, if I do remember correctly. But, yeah, he did kind of give an update on his rehab, how it's going. He said, it was kind of hard at first for him to be away from the team. And then, he said it's actually been kind of fun, like getting back into the gym, like getting stronger. And I believe James Edwards even had tweeted out a picture of Cade at the practice facility, and his legs look freaking huge. It looks like Kawhi Leonard out there, man, just like huge as hell. But really happy that we did get an update on Cade. I feel like a lot of Pistons fans, when he went down, they kind of got depressed, and I can understand why, because it's like kind of your franchise guy. But it's really encouraging to hear that he's actually back in the gym and actually shooting jump shots again. So can't wait to see what he does, show us this summer. So I'm sure we're going to get some summer highlights like we always do.
It's kind of a blessing in disguise, right? Like that for his jump shot, I'm just going to say that maybe he found his jumper and he's going to be shooting lights out from 3-point this upcoming season because, he said he's working on moving without the ball and taking a lot of standstill jumpers. So I'm just equating that to catch and shoot. So I'm excited for him. I mean, do you think his injury when he went down, it changed the goals of the season for the Detroit Pistons?
Yeah, because I think they wanted to try to make the play-in. And I think when, that injury did happen, even though we weren't winning too many games when, he was on the court, I think they kind of shifted their focus to just straight up development and kind of seeing what they have in Jaden Ivey as a lead guard and kind of giving Killian Hayes more time as, the point guard on this team, even though that's what he was drafted to do. That's kind of funny, but I'm not gonna say too much. I'm kind of just over it, but
yeah.
The experience, I should say. But I do think that, like you said, it did change plans, but I think it's a blessing in disguise because we've seen Jaden Ivey turn into this point guard, which I said in the beginning of the year, and Pistons fans had my head. They said he's not a point guard. I'm like, dude, he's more comfortable as a point guard. But hey, I'm happy for Jaden Ivey. I still think he's going to be a star. I've been saying it for like going on 3 weeks.
Yeah, you've been a Jaden Ivey supporter when he was still at Purdue as a Boilermaker. I still remember the tweet where you called him as the Detroit Piston months and months and months before the draft started. You were a believer before anybody else. Yeah, I mean, outside of Jaden Ivey's development, we got to see a little bit from Jalen Duren, which was really nice. Got to see a little bit more of his expanded offensive game, and we're still going to continue to see that as the season goes on. Got to see some different lineups. It sucks losing Cade, but like we were saying, there's some blessings, that came from it all. So, it's an exciting time, and when he returns, fans will have more of a reason to attend LCA. So. Let's talk about this LCA attendance for a moment. It just shows you that, dude, Detroit Pistons fans are psychotic. And that's what makes us so great. We've had 63 wins in 3 seasons. It's our 4th consecutive losing season. We're on the verge of the 2nd worst record in Detroit Pistons history. I mean, there's still, 10 games left, and they could easily cross over 20. But neither you or I or probably anybody watching or listening to this doesn't think that's going to happen. So it's one of the worst seasons. But for some reason, we're still attending games, which is great. We're 12th in attendance this year?
Yeah, which is crazy. I looked at that chart. I believe Jack Kelly had posted it, so shout out to him. OKC is like dead last. like
Which is
dead last,
crazy.
and they have a pretty decent record. I know SGA did come back, and like that's just insane to me. But I mean, I guess there's not like a whole lot to do in Oklahoma City. But the fact that we're kind of like flirting with top 10, that's good to see. And I just think that the city of Detroit just wants a good basketball team. A lot of people say that, this is a football town. I would argue when the Pistons are good, you could probably see LCA sold out each and every night.
Oh yeah. Were the Pistons the only losing team on that list?
I can check real quick. I know this is we do this every week, I swear. I
That's
go
all
to
good.
I go to check and it's like extremely bad podcasting. So I do apologize for that.
It's funny though that OKC, despite the great talent that they have on their team, that people aren't attending the game because, like you said, what is there to do in Oklahoma City? Other than attend a professional basketball game, there's not much.
Yeah, no. I'm just kind of because I know I saw Jack tweet it and dude, he tweets a lot. Holy crap!
Yeah, I thought the Pistons were the only losing team. I would be shocked if there was another losing team on that list. Because go on.
No, you're good. I know I saw it the other day. I just don't know where it's at. I can't find it anymore. Maybe he deleted it, but being 12th in attendance is still a positive sign if you are the Pistons because, like you said, you've won 60 games in 3 years. You're going on to this would be your on the fifth year of rebuilding, depending on who you ask. I think if you put like a mid 30s, maybe high 40s type of team out there, you could see that attendance in the top 10. And it does help that the ticket prices have come down a little bit. But parking down at LCA is still a bitch.
So, okay, I got the list. I just Googled it real quick. We have the Bulls at number 1.
Uh-huh.
Do they have a winning record?
I know they're in the play-in, but their tickets are like $2.
Yeah, but still, they're number 1. It's incredible. 76ers, number 2. Mavericks, not surprised, number 3. Raptors, number 4. Just let me know if any of these teams have a losing record. Heat, Cavaliers, Knicks, Nuggets, Celtics, Trailblazers, Lakers. Those are the first 11. Those are the 11 teams. I don't know.
Yeah, I just think the city they want a winner. And the fact that you have young, exciting guys like, Jaden Ivey, a Jalen Duren, you traded for James Wiseman, who seems like every game I watch, he's just getting better and better and better. So, I think there's a lot of excitement just in the city. And the fact that, I think that LCA is in Detroit, I think that's a big selling point for a lot of people that do want to go and watch the Pistons.
Yeah, I don't think the attendance would be the same if it was at the Palace of Auburn Hills right now with this losing team. But since the arena is right downtown, and there's so much more things that going on down. Like you can make an entire day of it, really, when you go to the game. Like that's what we did when we go to Detroit. Stop at a few places before there, and then, we walk to the game and enjoy the game and drive home. Let's talk about this next topic. It's a little fun, a little bit easier, a little bit more light, I guess I should say. But who's your favorite random Detroit Piston? Like just the guy that you're surprised wore the uniform.
I thought about it a little bit, and this was a really depressing, time during the Detroit Pistons like history. I'd probably say Tracy McGrady. I'd never thought I'd see T-Mac wear a Piston jersey, and the Pistons were a sorry-ass team. If I'm being completely honest and blunt, they just weren't a good basketball team. But just, being a basketball fan aside, Tracy McGrady was one of my favorite players to watch growing up as a kid. I mean, going back all the way from Toronto when he was on the Raptors with Vince Carter, and then, he goes to Orlando, and he's just a bucket. Like him and Kobe were probably my 2 favorite players to watch growing up as a kid.
Tracy McGrady was my favorite. He just had such swagger on the court. Did you have any hope that he would get healthy enough to almost reclaim his dominance in Detroit? Like I was always hoping that the rust just came off of him and he just started playing Like, I mean, not his Orlando days, but like his Houston days. I'm like, what if he just turns it around and starts dropping 25 a night again in Detroit? It just becomes this dominant force. Like I was holding out hope every single time he took out the court that happened.
Yeah, I never thought that would happen.
Oh,
I just thought, like, his best days were in Orlando.
yeah.
And, when he was in Detroit, I mean, like, sometimes you show people, like, random images of, like you said, a random Piston. Like, you show people a picture of Allen Iverson. You show people a picture of Tracy McGrady, Chris Webber. People are like, wait, T-Mac was a Piston? Wait, Chris Webber was a Piston? Because, like, people kind of just, like, they tuned out once we traded Chauncey Billups. Like, I think a lot of the fan base was just like, I'm done supporting this team. And you got a lot of random, guys that were stars that are kind of like, I don't want to say washed up, but like they weren't the same star they were when they were in their prime.
No, I mean, the best one was probably AI because he was definitely past his prime, but still became an all-star. But that's just because of popularity. But Kenny Smith, another random Detroit Piston. I think Joe Smith too was a Detroit Piston in the late '90s or something, or early 2000s for like 1 year. But I don't remember that too much. But yeah, like I think Brandon Jennings for me is the most random player, just because I always felt like he was on that. I've talked about this before, like when the Pistons got Rasheed Wallace, it gave me goosebumps. Where I'm like, dude, this is so unbelievable. I don't, even to this day, I have a hard time believing that trade happened. That was the same thing for Brandon Jennings with me. Like, even though his tenure didn't end in a championship or anything like that, it was just that personality and that volatile kind of player where he could just go off for 55 points or 2 technicals. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just loved Brandon Jennings and his swagger on the floor. Like, it's just, well, again, I wish his time in Detroit was a lot better than it was. And I wish it didn't end with an injury because, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he looked like he was slowly starting to figure out the efficiency wasn't there, but the playmaking, he was like really learning to become a point guard at that time. And man, he just got cut short here in Detroit. But he would probably be that random Piston for me where, just it was a big name, high profile, big personality. And he was here in Detroit for a little while. It was cool.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people in the chat have some good ones. Ryan named 2 that I completely forgot about. Caron Butler, he said it was a weird one, and Jameer Nelson.
I forgot about Jameer Nelson. And Corey Maggette was a weird one for me too.
Yeah. I mean, the Pistons have had a lot of like random players that they just signed, but to your Brandon Jennings one, I can't really consider Jennings random though.
Really? Why not? What makes well, I guess I don't know what would make a random player. I mean, does it have to be a former superstar?
No, it doesn't. But like I think a guy is like a like I know I had mentioned T-Mac, but he's kind of in that superstar tier. But I mean, like I don't know, Anthony Tolliver was random.
Yeah, but I mean, is it though? He's a journeyman. He's played for like 18 teams.
Yeah, but like Jennings, like I think people they knew who he was in Milwaukee a little bit, and to be honest, I actually hated that trade.
Oh, I hated it at the time. I liked Brandon Knight way more. I loved Brandon Jennings. I just didn't want to see him in a Pistons uniform.
I hated it for the Middleton one. Not so much Brandon Knight because I was just like, the Pistons are Joe Dumars was kind of back to like rebuilding the team through the draft, and you had Monroe, you had Drummond, you had Knight, you had Middleton. There was something there, maybe we didn't really know at the time, and you kind of trade both of them because Tom Gores is basically handcuffing Joe Dumars, saying, "Hey, I want to win." So, he just has a wild offseason of, trading those two. And then you bring in Josh Smith and you have probably one of the ugliest spacing teams in Detroit Pistons history.
Terrible.
Oh my God. Like having Josh Smith hit small forward, Greg Monroe at power forward, and Andre Drummond at center. That team was a cheat code in 2K if you wanted to rebound the ball. But I mean, outside of that, like KCP and Brandon Jennings, like that team had no business being assembled. Like, I don't even know what, they were even thinking, like putting that team together.
It was bad. It was bad. There was barely any bright moments. I really thought, I've said this before too. I thought if it was just like Greg Monroe and Josh Smith, it would have worked a little bit better. I don't think it would have been great. I don't think they would really win anything. But you get a guy like Josh Smith who can cut to the basket in a passing big like Greg Monroe. It works. Your team's just not very good. But back to Brandon Jennings just for a moment. Well, actually, no, back to Chris Middleton. I don't really remember his time in Detroit. I don't remember it being great or anything like. I mean, I know a lot of people say that, but I personally don't remember him in Detroit. I don't remember his time in Detroit.
Yeah, he didn't get a whole lot of like playing time, obviously, but he did come off the bench, and most of the time it was garbage time or if there was an injury. But you kind of saw the 3-point shooting was there, but you didn't really see the defense. But I was just kind of surprised that they packaged him for Jennings. But at the time, Jennings was a high lottery pick, and like you said, he dropped 50 on Steph Curry at the time, and a lot of people are talking about Brandon Jennings as like the superstar point guard, but it's kind of fun to go back and kind of like reminisce of like trades like that. But it's so funny. We forgot all the good ones. Joe Johnson, ISO Joe.
Yeah, but he didn't really play in a Pistons uniform. He just did like a training camp thing. That's why I kept him off the list.
He had preseason burn.
He did? He had some minutes in preseason? Okay, I guess I don't remember that. That's
like you remember there was talks that Christian Wood might not make the team, and it was between Christian Wood and Joe Johnson.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, but even then it was let's talk about that for a second. Do you really think Joe Johnson had a shot at making the NBA roster over Christian Wood at that time on that Detroit Pistons team?
I think it was a conversation until Christian Wood showed everyone who he was. Because at the time, unless you watched a lot of G League or you were a Pelicans fan, you didn't know who Christian Wood was. And that's nothing against him. It's just he didn't really have like long NBA stints at the time. He was getting 10 days and maybe, getting, playing time in March like we're seeing right now. But, I mean, I think Joe Johnson was just a name. And it helps that, your former agent was in the front office and aren't telling him. So
yeah, but it's just one of those things like how much did Joe Johnson really help that team? Like I remember that conversation. I remember talking about it, but I don't. It always just shocked me at the time because I'm like, dude, okay, Joe Johnson, if he could really help a team, he wouldn't be trying out for the last place Detroit Pistons right now. Like if he could really help out an NBA team, he wouldn't be trying out. I didn't believe it. I thought it was Christian Wood's spot the entire time because I don't remember his time in the Pelicans, but I remember his time with Milwaukee. So I believe Giannis was hurt, maybe not even hurt before the playoffs, but Christian Wood was getting a longer look in Milwaukee towards the end. At least that's what I remember, but I could be misremembering that.
Yeah, I mean, we forgot so many names, like because obviously the topic is your favorite random Piston. I mean, I could just go through the name because people, they're loving this topic. So
drop 3 more real quick. Give me 3 more names.
Bob Sura.
Oh, dude, Bobby? Who didn't love Bobby? I loved Bobby Sura, man. Except for he came to Detroit for Clifford Robinson, and I hated that dude. I miss Uncle Cliffy so much, man.
Chris Wilcox.
Oh, good one. Good one. Love Chris Wilcox. He was an absolute machine in 2K. Loved Chris Wilcox, man.
I'll do one more. Terry Mills.
Yeah, that was in the 90s, man. That's a surprising one too. I don't remember his time though.
3 Mills?
I was young.
Yeah, I do remember him because I did grow up on that Grant Hill era. Man, he would just splash the threes. Like he was kind of in that teal era with Grant Hill. When I mean, you see him from time to time on the Bally Sports broadcast, but I mean, those are all great names. I love that you guys came prepared in the chat with all these names that we completely forgot. So love you guys for that.
Yeah, no, definitely appreciate you guys. All right, let's move on to some news. All right, the Detroit Pistons received $21.5 million in revenue sharing. What does this mean? Does that mean they have extra money in the cap? Like, does any of that go towards the cap? Or I just go in Tom Gore's pocket?
Let me kind of just pop a bubble in this whole topic.
Okay.
Because it's really boring and you're going to probably say to yourself, what the fuck?
Yep.
So the Pistons got $21.5 million in revenue sharing. All the big market teams have to give money to the small market team, so it's equal.
Yeah.
So the Pacers got the most because the Pacers are the one team that doesn't get any revenue. They got over $40 million in revenue.
I saw that.
So all the big market teams like the Lakers, the Knicks, the Warriors have to share their revenue with the smaller market teams like the Detroit Pistons, like the Charlotte Hornets, all the small market teams. So it's fair because teams like the Lakers, I bet you their revenue is off the charts because they're on national TV. It seems like every other game.
Yeah, they're just a huge brand.
So,
I mean, people want to wear the purple and gold.
So that's all it is the Pistons got 21 million from the big market team, so it's fair. And Tom Gores doesn't get any of that money.
That's good to hear. All right, the NBA home game against the Milwaukee Bucks will no longer be on NBA TV. This is the second game this season that has been taken off. Is NBA TV a national broadcast? Because it's like a paid subscription to have on it. But either way, it's the big TV game that's been taken off. Second time this season.
Yeah, I guess it's considered a national televised game because if you do have a cable package, you usually get NBA TV for the most part. But I'm not really surprised that the league did this. It's disappointing, obviously, because we were supposed to get 4 national televised games, and we got one taken off of TNT, which I believe was the Rockets versus the Pistons, which I would have thought, that would have been a good game, but no. This one is against the Bucks. That would have been a home game. Obviously, they don't want to broadcast the Pistons again. So I mean, I get it. You're a rebuilding team. There's probably not a lot of money to be made. They want to get a TV game that maybe a play-in team that's close to the playoffs or a playoff team. I just kind of think it's disappointing that the league can actually take away games. Yeah, but that's all I'll really say on it. I just don't understand why you give someone a game and then you take it away.
I wonder. It doesn't have anything. I hope it doesn't have anything to do with the fans the other night talking to Jamal Murray. I hope it has nothing to do with that. For the NBA commissioner's like, fuck, we got to take these guys off TV.
Bro, that guy was talking crazy.
Yeah, that was, man, just crazy, man. I don't even know what to say about that. Just awkward, man.
We won't repeat what he said, but like I said, what he said was some fighting words for sure.
So I don't know. This is what I'll say about this: like the NBA taking the Detroit Pistons off the NBA TV against the Milwaukee Bucks. How do you grow other small market brands if you do this to them? Like you would think that you would want to put some small market teams, a team that has the 12th best attendance, on a game-to-game basis. They're a losing team. This is a 16-win team with the 12th best attendance, and you take away a nationally televised game for what? And you also want to talk about growing these small markets, and then you do this. How is a small market supposed to grow when they get no nationally televised games? And you have a young player, a young, exciting player that's healthy right now, 2 of them really, for the Detroit Pistons, and Jaden Ivey and Duren. You would think the NBA would want to showcase those 2 younger players and get their names out there and people talking. And then when Cade Cunningham returns, are you not going to show his games on nationally televised TV? I don't get it. It's stupid. Don't give them to us, then take it away with no explanation. I at least want an explanation too from the NBA why they're doing this. I would like that. That'd be nice.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. I know that game. They're having a special. I think the special guest for that game is going to be Rashad Phillips. So he's going to be in town and he's going to be promoting his book that he did write. So shout out to Rashad. Had him on here before. He's just a really nice guy. Always love talking to him. I'm gonna see if we can try to get him on for like NBA draft stuff because he's just so knowledgeable in terms of just the game of basketball and calling stuff like super early. So,
but he's coming to this game and he's gonna be. Are they doing an interview or is he gonna do like play-by-play or color commentating or something?
I think it's just an event where he's gonna be like a special guest.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like when you're in the concourse and get a picture with him or I think it's more of just like promoting his book, and he's been doing like a lot of cool things. Like I think Chris Webber is like helping him like get on TV for him to like talk more about like how he kind of breaks down players, because if you guys don't really follow him in terms of just like how he breaks down position players, like he talks about how, it's not just, point guard through center. There's certain tiers to different players. Like he would clarify Cade Cunningham as like a point forward. Like if you really want to learn the game, like he's a great follow and he's so knowledgeable. So really happy for him that he's having all that success because guy busts his ass.
Yeah, I like that he distinguishes between like a scoring point guard and a lead guard or a playmaking guard. That's what he does in that book. It's pretty cool. I like what he does. Some of the stuff kind of blends together, but it's basketball, so who cares? I'm just I'll just close with this. Like I'm just shocked that the NBA did this again. If you're trying to grow a small market, you shouldn't be taking away nationally televised games, and it's a chance for Giannis just to go off and have like a 50-point triple-double, dude. Who doesn't want to watch that? That's good television.
Piston fans.
We'll suffer through it.
It's so funny, man. Like I honestly think Pistons fans, they're so numb to the losing. Like they just don't even care anymore.
Are you ever shocked at how many guys have had great games against the Detroit Pistons? I'm always shocked when I watch like a player's highlight tape and they have these mega highlights against the Pistons. You could do it from like I've watched like guys from the 80s all the way up until this time, and it'll be the most random player, but he is always cooking against the Detroit Pistons. I don't understand that.
Yeah, like I remember Marvin Williams in Charlotte. Seems like every time he played the Pistons, he couldn't miss from three. Just random Piston killers.
Random. Let's talk about some draft news. Adrian Wojnarowski reports Brandon Miller could rise to the second best available prospect in the 2023 NBA draft. This is from Pick and Row Twitter. I'm not shocked, dude. We've had a lot of discourse and a lot of conversation on social media about Brandon Miller going too. There's a lot of people out there that think you are dumb. Not you personally. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying if you're one of these people that thinks Brandon Miller will go to the Detroit Pistons if they draft with the second pick, I'm in that school of thought. I honestly think they'd pass over Scoot Henderson at 2 for Brandon Miller. I think Brandon Miller's that good. He's in the conversation. But there's a lot of people that will call you dumb if you think that, and that Scoot Henderson is the easy choice and the no-brainer choice. But I don't know, man. I'm slowly liking Brandon Miller on this team more than I am Scoot Henderson.
Yeah, like I know I said it about 3 weeks ago. I told you, give it a couple of weeks. Yep. You're going to see the media do this thing where they're going to push Brandon Miller as maybe the second best player in this draft because for the last 6 months, it's been Victor and Scoot. Yep. Everyone's just been debating. It's Victor and Scoot. Well, now it's Victor, Scoot, and Brandon Miller. Not surprised that this is happening. It seems like it happens every year in the draft is if there's a wing. If you do remember in Killian's draft, Patrick Williams was maybe the 12th consensus pick, and he shoots all the way up to 4th for the Chicago Bulls. So this happens, it seems like every other draft when there's a wing with 3-and-D potential. Woj said on ESPN he could turn into that Paul George type of superstar wing that all these NBA franchises want. So not really surprised that they're going to try to push Brandon Miller as the second best player in this draft because not a whole lot of people actually watch the G League Ignite. Even though I do cover the G League, I've seen Scoot Henderson play. Phenomenal player. I still think he's the second best player in this draft. I just think a lot of people are going to be watching March Madness. They're going to be watching Alabama, and they're going to kind of have recency bias. I do think Brandon Miller, to me personally, I think fit-wise, he makes the most sense for the Detroit Pistons, but you usually don't draft for fit if you're drafting, top 5 in the lottery. You're usually drafting for best player available. But like I said, I'm not surprised by it. We've talked about this for 3 weeks, that the media would do this, and now they're doing it.
But do you think the gap between Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller is that large? And also, I like that you threw out Patrick Williams, but he was more of a mystery, I think, than Brandon Miller. His draft was more on potential. With Brandon Miller, you're actually seeing the 3-and-D, that secondary playmaking. You saw the handle get better. You're watching him able to take guys off the dribble, using great size, great length. But also when he's not shooting the ball well, he's still affecting the game in other ways. I think Scoot Scoot Henderson's phenomenal. I think he's going to be great. There's that real reminder of Derrick Rose. Like, he's a very explosive athlete, good from the mid range, can get to his spots, like very quick and very athletic. I think you can make it work in Detroit with Ivy and Cade because Cade does have great size. Ivy has good size too for either backcourt position. But man, it's like, do you need that many playmaking guards on one team? I just think with the Pistons, like if there were more mysteries surrounding Cade and Jaden Ivey, I think it'd be no brainer with Scoot Henderson. But you've seen what those two can do in the NBA, and you see the ceiling of those two. So why do you want to add another guard when you can add a potential Paul George type player into the mix with those guys?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week with Sam Vizzini. He had a piece with James Edwards, and he said, Pistons aren't really in a position to draft for fit. Scoot Henderson is the second best player in this draft. They get number 2. They should just draft Scoot and figure it out later. And, I saw something where I thought it was really interesting with Scoot. And some people are saying, like, the Pistons could draft Scoot, but doesn't mean they're keeping him.
Yeah.
They could look the package Scoot and trade him to another team that wants Scoot Henderson, which, that does happen. It happens, but it's very rare you see a team, like trade a second overall pick or, a first overall pick when they do draft him. But like I said, I would not be surprised if the Pistons are 2 and they draft Brandon Miller.
Okay, so let me ask you this, though, real quick. I don't mean to cut you off, but is Scoot Henderson, like we were talking about this a little bit before, the term generational is thrown out a lot. I don't think he's a generational point guard. I just don't. I think he's a very athletic. I think he's going to be very good. But again, is the gap between him and Brandon Miller that large where if you don't draft Scoot Henderson, he haunts you for a decade? Is that a real possibility? Do you think?
I do, because I think with Scoot, just his play style, I think it's marketable. And I know that's probably not the answer you want to hear.
No, that's fair.
You look at Scoot Henderson in the same light you would at Jaden Ivey, right? So like Jaden Ivey, to me, I think it's really marketable because he's an explosive guard and he's an explosive athlete, like a Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, a John Morant. I think he's very marketable. I think in terms of play style, I still think Scoot is the second best player in this draft. But like I told you, Brandon Miller's knocking on the door. Like he's knocking on the door each and every time he plays basketball. Especially in this March Madness tournament. But if you told me you have to pick one today, I'm picking Scoot because I see the potential there. I think he can become a better 3-point shooter than he is. From last year around this time to this year, he was only shooting around, I think, 23%. Now he's up.
I think 30. It was like 19% or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, like 20%. Now he's up to 32. So that's a big jump.
Yeah,
he going up 12%. I think a lot of the questions that we have about Scoot, a lot of people had the same questions about Jaden Ivey.
I've watched a little bit of Scoot too, and again, like very athletic, very quick, and get to his spots. I don't think generational is fair. I think the only generational basketball players we've watched in our lifetime are LeBron, Kevin Durant, Kristaps Porzingis early when he had the handle. Would try to break you up off the wing, which was amazing. And now Victor Wembanyama. Those are the 4 guys that you have never seen basketball players like that. But I think with Scoot Henderson, the reason I don't call him generational is because we've seen 6'2", 6'3" athletic point guards with big bodies. And they are good. Derrick Rose, youngest MVP in the league, playing that type of style. But those guys, I hate rings culture, but we'll bring it into this conversation. Those guys don't win championships. So I don't know. If that's the ultimate goal, I think I'd rather go for fit right now and trust in what Cade and Ivy are doing versus draft Scoot Henderson and then wait another year and see what I got. I'd rather go for fit. I don't think the gap between Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson is that large for you to say it's Scoot Henderson no matter what. It's a no-brainer pick with Scoot Henderson. I think you're looking at a 6'8", 6'9" wing that can play both ways, and he's going to be ready to contribute day one because he's not going to need the ball in his hands to be the playmaker to facilitate and do all that stuff. He's going to be able to catch and shoot and play off of Cade Ivey. He's going to be able to come in day one and be able to do those things and contribute right away. And I think that's what you're going to get with him. And with Scoot, it might look fine at times between the three of them if it does happen, but I think it's going to be more frustrating than it is going to be fun for fans.
Yeah, so I'm not going to kind of let you sneak in KP in there with generational, because I don't think he was generational. I think what he did, yeah, he's 7'4", he's got a handle. But I think I would throw Zion in that conversation before I'd throw KP, because even in college, everyone was watching Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson was must-see TV. I think when you throw Kristaps Porzingis into the conversation, I get what you're saying, but I can't throw him into the generational talent, because I've seen guys like Sean Bradley. Like,
yeah, but Sean Bradley could not do what Kristaps could do, though.
No, like calling him generational, dude. That was
I said that. I say Kristaps is in that generational. I think there's a bunch. I think there's a handful of players you could throw in there that don't have the success of don't have the success of like a LeBron James or a Kevin Durant. But I think Kristaps. The reason I say generational is you've never seen anybody like that. Like, there was a real conversation where you're like, man, you might be able to play him at the 3. You know, with that kind of size, like 7'3", whatever he is, playing a small forward, like he had a legitimate guard-like jumper, could break you off the dribble, could attack the rim. He was an explosive athlete. You had never seen anything like that. It just, the injuries had taken too much effect, so now he's more of just like a stretch 4. You know, like the injuries have limited what he could do. But we called him a unicorn for a reason, because we had never seen it. You know, it was rare. But Zion, I think you can throw in that type 2, but also we did have Charles Barkley. They're both. I say we've seen a couple undersized power forwards with power, but the combination of playmaking that Zion has brought in, that we've seen flashes of, that's what puts him in that generational type category. That type of strength, that type of explosiveness and athletic ability with the ability to find an open man. Yeah, that type of stuff is generational. He just needs to get healthy.
Yeah, like I said, I like KP, but that only lasted, it seemed like, for 2 months, and then
it went away.
Yeah, like I said, we just saw the Wizards a couple of games ago, and he doesn't even like going in the post anymore.
No, he doesn't.
He's just strictly a stretch 4 now. Yep. An oversized stretch 4 that's overpaid, in my opinion. But hey, shout out to Washington for trading for him.
Made me cough a little bit. Bally Sports, everybody's favorite sports media company, has officially filed for bankruptcy, man. We talked about this a few weeks ago. They're like, what, part of Diamond Sports or something? And I don't know, maybe NBC picks up the NBA and we get a better, broadcast. I did like that there were 81 games, though, that Bally Sports aired. That was nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's in their contract. They have to.
But I didn't feel like Fox Sports did 81 games. Oh,
they would rely on the national televised games to do that. So, I don't know, man. Like, I'm kind of happy. I'm not happy that they're filing for bankruptcy, but I'm kind of happy they're going away, just because I just wasn't really a fan during the Bally era. I just thought, paying $20 a month for a streaming service that works when it wants. The games were impossible to get when you're trying to call your cable company. Your cable company wants to charge you damn near $80-$90 just to watch the Pistons. There are free sites out there that don't cost a freaking dime, but I'm not going to say what they are, that are actually in better quality than what Bally gives you. Like, everything they've done, I'm not surprised they failed. I don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, there's rumors that the Illiches might start like a Detroit sports network, kind of like how Madison Square Garden has their own type of thing over there, where it would just be like Illich Sports. I know there's been rumors that Tom Gores might get in there with Chris Illich, and they may launch a all Detroit sports network where it's Red Wings, Tigers, Pistons, and that's it. Because the Lions are usually on Fox 2 anyways. So,
yep.
I don't know, man. I feel a lot of people's frustrations with Bally. I think the era of Bally Sports was just kind of like a placeholder. But hey, man, not paying your bill, that's not a good sign.
I didn't think the broadcast was that bad. I haven't had too many issues with Bally Sports. I mean, there were times where the image would kind of go out, like and get it looked blurry, but then it would come right back. I haven't had too many issues with it though. I mean, I'm like you. I don't want to pay that much every month to watch the Pistons. I think that's kind of an absurd price for a streaming service where, I mean, it's decent. It's not the best thing, but it will do. It's a lot of money every month. But I'm interested in see if the Illiches and Tom Gores actually do a Detroit media company or a media network or whatever. That'd be kind of interesting. The only thing I would be concerned about that is since they would control that, they probably control some of the media. So some of the journalism would probably be kind of biased a little bit, which would be interesting, maybe, but we'll see if it even happens. But hopefully we can at least watch the Detroit Pistons next year on something.
Yeah, like I don't think it's going to be immediate, but I think it'll definitely be in the future. To your point about like the journalism, obviously when you go in a media room, there's about 30 people. So
Yep.
I mean, obviously the person that works for the Detroit Pistons, Keith Langlos. I mean, I feel like he's pretty fair in terms of like covering the Pistons. He doesn't like kind of have his pom poms out like some writers do, but he just kind of says how it is, and I respect the hell out of him for that. But I wouldn't be concerned with that with a journalist kind of sugarcoating shit. But
Well, it would be more like serious stories, you know what I'm saying? Like not necessarily a scandal, but something that we might be interested in talking about, but it might get buried or something like that because the Pistons or the Red Wings or the Tigers or the Lions don't want it getting out, so they're telling everybody like, "Hey, just keep it on the hush." I don't know. Could happen.
yeah, it's stupid stuff. I usually get my hands on stuff that
Yeah, I know you do.
I shouldn't get my hands on stuff like that because people have a big mouth and they just tell me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk about that. Thanks.
But again, Bally Sports filing for bankruptcy. No surprise, not enough subscriptions. Let's move on to injuries. We got a lot of them. Bojan still out with an Achilles tendon soreness. We're not going to see him at all. I dropped him in fantasy.
I feel like everyone I have on this list, you're not going to see for the rest of the year.
Alec Burks out with a foot injury. Isaiah Livers, I hope we see him, but he's out with hip soreness. Isaiah Stewart, left shoulder. Hamidou Diallo, I forgot he was a Piston until I looked at the injury report and I forgot that his ankle was hurting him. So, and Cade Cunningham, lower leg. But, we already all knew that. That's a lot of injuries, man.
You haven't noticed Hamidou because Amarui's is killing it.
Dude, he is. I know we talked about this last week, and it's a long shot for him to make the Pistons roster. But what Piston would you release from the team, other than Corey Joseph and Ronnie Magruder, to keep Eugene Amarui on the team?
Do you remember what I said when we signed Amarui?
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
I said this could be a Hamidou Diallo replacement if he gets too expensive in free agency. Now, I'm not saying they're the same player because I feel like Hamidou is way more gifted in transition. He's way more gifted around the rim. But Amarui, to me, is just that junkyard dog that just tries on defense. If he turns into a three-point shooter, cool. It's more than we've seen from Hamidou Diallo shooting threes. That's not really his strong suit is shooting threes. It's more of attacking the basket. But I think if you were to ask Pistons fans right now if you could have Hamidou Diallo or Eugene Amarui, I think it would be pretty damn close. Just because what I've seen from him in his short time here in Detroit, I think it kind of resonates with the fans because he's taking charges. He's diving for loose balls. Seems like every time he gets fouled, he's talking shit to the player that fouled him. Like, I just love Eugene Amarui, man. I hope he makes it, honestly, man. Like, Casey had probably one of the funniest quotes I've ever read. And he said, that guy's got a PhD, poor, hungry, driven.
Oh, geez. That is awesome.
And when you have guys that are poor, hungry, and driven, they're going to work their ass off to make it into the league. And that's what he's done. And I'm happy for him, man. Like, I hope he has, a home here in Detroit because he just works his ass off. And I like, feel good stories like that. And I like seeing guys that actually try and actually give a shit, because he's probably the first guy this year that I've actually seen play defense that actually, doesn't get in foul trouble. He's not hacking. Like, I'm happy for him.
Yeah, his energy and effort are just so contagious with this team, man. I would say goodbye to Hamidou Diallo for Eugene Amarui, man. He can play both forward spots, good versatility. I'm not saying he changes the fortunes of a franchise. I'm just saying he's a guy that you could have on your bench as that 8th or 9th man, and he's happy in that role, getting like 15, 18 minutes a night, just going all out. He probably, I mean, that might even still be an unrealistic role for him because he's only played 35 games in his career. Like it's hard to say, but I mean, he's been a bright spot this year for the Detroit Pistons, and it's late in the season. I love the kid, man. I really do, dude. It's just fun to watch. Like, he made that move last week, and I know I talked about it on the podcast where he just caught it, did the Euro step, and finished. It's just, we don't have a guy like that can do things. And again, he's not your franchise player. I'm not asking him to take more shots than Cade, but I don't mind him in that high energy effort role like Hamidou Diallo just to spark something at LCA. Give that to Eugene Amarui, man. Make that man get paid. Let him collect checks in Detroit. That's what I want to see from him, man. I hope he gets a fair shot at making the roster. That's all I want.
Yeah, you never really know what's going to happen in free agency with Hami.
Yeah.
It may come to a point where he kind of took a hometown discount for 2 years, 10 million. He may want to get that 10 to 12 million a year with the Pistons, and the Pistons may say, hey, like, we like you, but I don't know, man. Like, we got this young kid that's can slash. He's not as fast as you, but defensively he tries. I do think if it does get too expensive, the Pistons may just say, we're going to roll with Eugene this year, and say good luck in free agency. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I could see it happening, if Hami is asking for a lot during this summer.
Well, the thing that's also interesting about the two players, Eugene, not a great three-point shooter. He didn't give up shooting threes, though. He shoots about 2.5 a game. Hami just abandoned it. And it was a better thing for his career, but Hami never developed that consistency. I think Eugene Amarui could, where he could be closer to league average. But again, like we were talking about, we're talking about, 8th, 9th, 10th man on a good team here. But you need those guys. They're going to push you in practice, and when their number is called, they're going to show up and show out because they don't give up. Like you said, they got a PhD. Poor, hungry, and driven, man.
When I read that, I was like, man, that is such a Casey quote. Like, some of his quotes, dude, I just laugh. I was just like, there's no way he said that.
Dude, it's a good one. I love it. I'm going to be dropping that all week in the barbershop, man. Let's talk about Jaden Ivey, though. He took a huge leap this year. We talked about it last week, where when you posted a video, too, the catch and shoot of one of the plays earlier in today's game as we record this on Sunday. It was a good shot. Like, you saw, and the thing that it wasn't even just him making it. It was the confidence in which he just squared up and just let it go. Like, you can tell he's worked on it. He's got that muscle memory down. No hesitation in the shot. Just, it was perfect. But Jaden Ivey's ceiling, what do you think it is in the NBA? Let's not compare him to a player, though, on this. And let's not say things like, well, we think he could lead us to a championship. Because, you could say that about anybody. That's just generic. But, like, do you see Jaden Ivey making, like, maybe an all-NBA team? Do you think he'll be considered one of the better guards in the NBA? Do you see a few all-star appearances? What's his ceiling in the NBA?
I think you'll see a few all-star appearances in his career. I think he'll be a lead guard in Detroit that could make some all-NBA teams depending on how they build. I think the summer will be very telling to see what his ceiling could possibly be. But like I've been saying for the past couple of weeks, I think he's going to be a superstar. And a lot of people have been coming at me about it, and I can understand why. He's just showing you all the tools that he does have. We didn't think he's going to be this knockdown three-point shooter. And he's becoming into a great, like you said, catch and shoot three-point shooter. Now, he did that at Purdue like crazy, and we're just kind of seeing it now in March, which is very disappointing. But hey, I'm happy that we're finally doing it in March. Um, I think you could see him on all NBA teams if his defense um, is this good throughout the season. Now, in October he wasn't really defending people, if I'm being
Yeah.
fair, but February and March he's trying on the defensive end. He's scrappy out there. He's playing the passing lanes. Trying to help out in the weak side. So he's becoming a better defender each and every game, but I don't think he'll ever be like this lockdown all defensive type of defender. But if you can be above average, I think you could kind of see him in that maybe second all NBA. I don't think he'll be a first all NBA because I think that's a select few of like superstar players that we just don't have on our team right now. But hey, I could be wrong. But I still think he's going to be a star for the Detroit Pistons. And I think Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey are going to be your backcourt for quite a long time.
Yeah, I could see this kind of working out how Tatum and Brown do it. Again, not saying NBA Finals. I'm just saying how two perimeter players have made it work for a franchise. I think Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham can do that. And I'm going to go out and say it. This could be a hot take for some people. I think Jaden Ivey could be one of the top 10 guards in the NBA. I think he could. I think an all NBA third team is, with what we've seen, those flashes of elite play, that's realistic. And you got to think about the guards he'll be competing with in the NBA in a few short seasons. There's going to be no Chris Paul. James Harden will be older. Devin Booker will be a little bit older. These guys he's going to be competing with on the NBA team. LaMelo Ball might be one of those guys. John Morant will be one of those guys. But, Dame Lillard, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, all those guys, all the big names, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, they're going to be out of the league. And I know some new guards are going to be coming in, but Jaden Ivey's going to be one of those dudes leading the pack. So I think there really is a chance for him making a couple all NBA teams. Definitely a couple all-star appearances, man. You saw him this all-star weekend, he showed some flashes of exciting play. So yeah, he's a marketable player. I think he's going to be one of those guys in the NBA.
I think the thing with him that really stands out is just his drive and his willingness to get better and his willingness to want to win. And I think those are all the qualities of a star player. I think of some players that we have drafted that they play basketball, but they're not passionate about it.
Yeah.
Like they're just playing basketball because they're athletically gifted. And that's a lot of basketball players in the NBA where, they can play basketball, but they're not in the gym at 3 a.m. They're not the first one into the gym. Jaden Ivey is one of the first guys in the gym and the last to leave. And I know that's probably one of the most cliche things to say when we're talking basketball, but it is true. There's a quote from James Edwards this week saying that he tries to beat Ronnie McGruder and Corey Joseph in the gym every morning. He said, I got to, wake up an hour early so I can beat those old heads to the gym because I want to be the first one in the gym.
I love that.
And it's kind of like something that we don't really get to see. But, having veterans like Corey Joseph and Ronnie McGruder is good for a young guy like that because he starts developing winning habits. He starts developing good habits being in the NBA. So I think he's got, like I said, all the qualities to be a star guard in this league. Like you said, I don't even think what you said is going to be a hot take. I think he is going to be a top 10 guard just because we've seen such fast improvement in his rookie year. We didn't think the 3-point shot was going to be this good this early on. Like, if you can shoot league average close to 40%, you're probably going to be in a 3-point contest pretty soon. He's just such a good guard. And that's why I was so high on him last year around this time, because I saw a lot of qualities to his game where I know you said you don't want to like make comps, but you kind of see that Dwayne Wade, Victor Oladipo kind of archetype of player where both of those guys, Dwayne Wade, NBA champion. Victor Oladipo obviously hasn't won an NBA championship, but his time in Indiana, the guy was averaging 30 points a game, and he was, he was leading, the Pacers to the playoffs before he did have his injuries. But he's just kind of that type of guard where, you can kind of build around it. And I think Pistons fans should be very excited with the Jaden Ivey draft pick and what's to come for the Pistons in the future.
Oh, it's going to be so great when Cade comes back healthy. And I cannot wait for him and Ivy just to take over the Eastern Conference, dude. It's going to be amazing. Central Division titles coming to Detroit. See you soon.
So
Go on.
I had a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
So James Wiseman, is it fair to say that he's better than Jalen Duren?
I mean, it's pretty tough. He's better. Would you say he's better offensively? Like, I don't know. I don't think James Wiseman's a better overall player than Jalen Duren, because I think Jalen Duren already has showed more defense than James Wiseman. But James Wiseman, you can see why he was the second pick in his draft. But I think Jalen Duren is still a better basketball player just because of that motor and that effort he brings. There's something that's always going to have him on the court. With James Wiseman, he might be a few missed shots away from being sitting on the bench and then not being effective for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I've just seen a lot of fans have this conversation, and a lot of fans are actually mad that Jalen Duren isn't starting with James Wiseman or starting over him. But I think it's a close conversation. I think offensively he's more polished, like you said. I think defensively, Jalen Duren shows you why he was a lottery pick last year, because there's so much potential there of him being able not only to protect the rim, but being able to, guard people. Like you said, one of your favorite quotes about Troy Weaver with Isaiah Stewart is watch his feet.
Yep.
I think Jalen Duren has very good, what does Shaq say? Feet work. So I think he's got very good footwork. But I would say I think Jalen Duren, rightfully so, I think off the bench isn't a bad move for the Pistons, because I think it kind of gives you a good dynamic. But I would say James Wiseman is showing me so much that I would kind of put him over Jalen Duren right now.
Mm.
And since the Wiseman trade, he's actually damn near averaging close to 2 blocks a game.
He has looked better. He really has. And I mean, he's averaging what is he averaging? Like 12 or 13 in Detroit with like 7 or 8 rebounds. He's looked better on the looked better on the glass. But I think the Pistons are electing not to start Jalen Duren because, one, he is the guy going forward. They know this. And they just want to see James Wiseman in a bunch of different situations as a starter, off the bench, against, whoever the opponent is, like their starting bigs. I think they just want to see what they have in James Wiseman, because this is kind of their way of sitting Jalen Duren, if that makes sense. Like, we're not going to shut you down for the season, but we're not going to start you, and we're going to limit your minutes from game to game just to see what we got in these other guys.
Yeah, I just think he was James Wiseman was knocking down a 3-pointer.
Yep.
In today's game, I think the Warriors didn't really know how to use him, because the Warriors had such a system with Draymond Green that James Wiseman had such a unique type of game where they kind of wanted to fit him into the dribble hand up offense, where James Wiseman, to me, he's the type of center where you give him a good 8 to 15 touches a game and let him work out of the post, let him, catch lobs, let him stretch the floor. I think Wiseman could learn the dribble handoff offense. I just don't think he liked it. I think he likes working in the post. And I think a lot of Pistons fans like watching him work in the post. I can see why he's starting right now, just to kind of see what you have. And a lot of people are like, remember, Duren's only 19.
Yep.
We know that. We know, but I think a lot of Pistons fans are saying, Wiseman's better than Duren right now. I think offensively he's more polished, but I think defensively Duren's shows you why, like I said, why he was a lottery pick.
Yeah, no, Duren has showed so much. I mean, I think he leads all rookies in double-doubles this season. I could be wrong about that, but I thought he was number 1. I know he's leading everybody in blocks for a rookie. And I mean, but Wiseman, let's go back to him. Dude, yeah, he's averaging 13 and 9 right now with 1 block per game, shooting 54% from the field on about 11 shots per game. He's phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it might be one of those things with James Wiseman too, like the team's just not very good, so his stats look a little better. Jalen Duren, I mean, I don't even really know what to say, man. I don't know. I think Duren's still the better basketball player of the two. But I love Wiseman and what he's doing in Detroit. I just, but I guess if it came down to it, you had to pick between the two. Who would you pick long term in Detroit? Would you go Wiseman based on what he's done now, or would you go on Duren based on his whole rookie year?
That's tough because I don't know if Duren's going to turn into like this Bam Adebayo
Yeah,
type, or is he going to turn into, just an average center? We don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. I think there's potential there with the mid-range jumper. I think there's potential there with his passing, even though Jaden Ivey actually clowns him on his passing sometimes in practice. I don't know if you saw that quote from James Edwards. He said, yeah, sometimes you throw some really wild passes and we all clown him for it. So that's kind of funny, but I think it's too early to kind of like have these conversations in terms of like, who would you want? But I think it's a good problem to have.
Well, let me ask you this, or let me just say this. I think Duren, he has the higher floor of the two and maybe the lower ceiling, which sounds kind of funny because he's now watching Bam Adebayo, and you could see that path happening for Jalen Duren, where he becomes more than just a role man on an offense, like a guy that you could play in the high post, who has a decent mid-range jumper, and then with the vision and the better passing, you could be the entire package. But James Wiseman, his floor is lower because there's real bust potential there, but the ceiling is just incredibly high. Like you're looking at a potential legit franchise player if he figures it out. And with Duren, it's like, the floor is higher, and he's going to be a solid player no matter what, even if he's, just a regular center averaging 12, 14 a game with 9, 10 rebounds and protecting your rim. That's still solid for a 13th pick. But, there's something with Duren where you're like, yeah, he could reach Bam Adebayo, that's there. But I could see why – I guess what I'm saying is I could see why people would pick James Wiseman because the ceiling is so incredibly high. I would just rather go with Duren because even if he doesn't live up to the Bam Adebayo potential now that so many of us are thinking about since that article was dropped by Omari Sankofa earlier today, even if he doesn't reach that status and doesn't become an all-star, he's still going to be a solid player. That's why I would take Duren over Wiseman. But if Wiseman figures it out, damn, dude, damn. Yeah, you got it for nothing.
I'm thinking about it because, we have a Golden State fan in the chat, and he said we loved Wiseman, Steve Kerr didn't really know how to use him. I look at Wiseman, and I kind of see a little bit of Chris Bosh. Like when he was in Toronto, like Chris Bosh, obviously, he had a little bit of post moves. He could take it out to the perimeter, but you didn't really see him like really turn into like a knockdown 3-point shooter until like he was just basically that in Miami. And Chris Bosh was known to, block shots from time to time. I think that could possibly be what Wiseman turns into. I know Trey Weaver is hoping he turns into that Jermaine O'Neal type of player, but I don't know, man. Like it's kind of like how we talked about all the guards we have, and it's a good problem to have. You have 4 bigs, and it's a great problem to have because over these next like 10 games or so, you're really going to see like what you have in James Wiseman and what you have in Jalen Duren and Marvin Bagley and all these guys. And I think they're all young too. Like James Wiseman just got drafted 3 years ago. Duren got drafted, obviously last summer, but still, like these guys are young. I think, like you said, you'd rather have Wiseman just because of like, or you said you'd rather have Duren just because you don't really know what's there. I think if you'd asked me today, you could only pick one. I think I may roll with Wiseman just because of recency bias, because of what I've seen out of him, and between his first game as a Piston to like what he's turned into lately, like you may be looking at it like a 20-12 guy on a nightly basis.
Yeah, and you look at the ceiling of Wiseman, and I don't blame anybody for saying like, yeah, I'll take Wiseman over Duren. I personally am taking Duren just because, like I said, the floor is higher. if he doesn't reach that Bam Adebayo all-star level, doesn't become that type of player, he's still going to be solid. But if Wiseman doesn't reach that ceiling, I just think he could potentially just be a journeyman in the NBA or playing overseas somewhere. I just think it's either it's an extreme low or an extreme high with Wiseman. I think there's no in between. But with Duren, I think that you're still getting a quality center, even if he doesn't reach an all-star status.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's such a great problem to have. I remember that we're talking about Bam Adebayo a couple minutes ago. I remember when Hassan Whiteside was with Miami, and he was just blocking shots like crazy, but Bam Adebayo was on the bench and kind of, playing behind him. I think it's a good problem to have because, let's say something does happen, like injury-wise or contract-wise or whatever. You have someone on your bench that's, been playing under them and they're ready to go. Like, stuff like that happens all the time. Like when Nikola Jokic, before he was a starting center, they had Yusuf Nurkic in Denver. And like Jokic, he barely played. He was in the rotation, but like eventually you kind of want to unleash these guys. And I think eventually, to your point, like you said, I'd rather have a Jalen Duren. Maybe Duren puts, games together over the next couple of seasons where they're ready to unleash Jalen Duren. I don't know if that'll happen, but I'm just trying to think of, big man tandems that I've seen over the, the past like 5 to 10 years where, no one knew Jokic was going to be a 2-time MVP and one of the best centers in basketball. Obviously, Hassan Whiteside's stint in Miami was pretty short-lived, but I think they're pretty happy with Bam Adebayo. So, I don't know. I just wanted to kind of compare those two.
Well, what if it worked out where James Wiseman he's the starting 4 and Duren is the 5? And James Wiseman, he gets an outside shot. We have a 7'1" 4 that can shoot threes, rebound a little bit. Even if he doesn't average double-digit rebounds, as long as he still averages 8 or 9, still gives us double-digit scoring, but he can play off of Duren. And then you got Cade Ivey running the backcourt, and then maybe a Brandon Miller or Joris Walker at the 3 or a Cam Whitmore at the 3. It's a pretty sexy lineup. You might be able to win a little bit with those guys. Man, there's so much that depends on it, though. It's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like the two big lineups that the Pistons want to run out. If your 4 is not a good 3-point shooter, I think it kind of clogs the lane. Now I know we saw Duren and Wiseman in short minutes this week, and Duren had 4 assists, but eventually players are going to play closer to you if they know you're going to pass it and you're going to start making turnovers. And I think the only way like a 2 big lineup is going to work is if you become a respectable 3-point shooter. And I don't think Duren is really ready to expand his game yet. I think he's capable. I know I've seen him shoot a couple of threes, and it seems like every time he does, Dwayne Casey rips him out of the game. But I feel like the only big that is capable of playing a 2 big lineup with them is Isaiah Stewart, and he's injured, so we won't really get to see him for the rest of the season. But I think the Duren Wiseman 2 big lineup is fun, but I don't think you would see it on a nightly basis. Just when you're playing like 2 bigs, like a Jared Allen and maybe an Evan Mobley. I think it's really conditional on who your opponent is.
Man, I thought that too, but I think you trade fan favorite Sadiq Bey and bring in Wiseman. The plan is to have him and Duren work together. And Duren doesn't have to shoot the threes. Like, as long as he develops a mid-range game, that's fine. But let him be my 5 in the middle. Let him intimidate people that drive the lane. And let Wiseman be the killer on offense as the finesse player. He's already taken about 1 3 per game right now in 13 games for the Detroit Pistons, shooting an incredible 18%. I had to squint and zoom in because that number is so low. That's pitiful. He could get that up, though. If he could get that up and take a couple threes a game, that 2 big lineup is going to work, and it's going to be awesome. But I think that's the goal, though, with what Troy Weaver brought in Wiseman. It wasn't to have him just compete with Duren. It was have those 2 on the floor together and win games. I think that's what it was all about. I think that's the experiment. You got to make it work, man.
Yeah, I mean, I had saw Corey Woods. He had tweeted out a video. John Beilein was working with James Wiseman on rebounding and outlet passes. Kind of just, helping him, rebound the ball a little bit better, because that is something that we've talked about before, where He's 7'1", but he doesn't really rebound like he's 7'1", if
No.
that makes sense. I'm trying to articulate it the best I can, but it's really hard because like you could have Duren at the 5 and Wiseman at the 4 because Wiseman's shown that he can stretch the floor a little bit, but I don't know, man. It's just when I look at the two big lineups, I hate to be a hater, but I just don't really see it working out unless one of those guys can be a 3-point shooter.
Yeah, one of them has to be a threat.
Yeah, it's just that's why they've been working with Isaiah Stewart over the past 3 years to become a knockdown 3-point shooter because they wanted to do a two big lineup. I think that's always been in the works. I mean, this is something that the franchise has wanted long before Troy Weaver's gotten here. I mean, they did it with Craig Monroe and Andre Drummond. They did it with Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond that had a little bit more success. But Blake was a good 3-point shooter. Yep. He was shooting 36% from three. So, like I said, if you want to do this two big lineup, you're going to have someone that can knock down the 3-point shot and work in and out of the post.
I mean, the potential's there for Wiseman. I really think he's the big on this team that could do that, be that outside threat and beat you up on the block. I really do think James Wiseman could do that. It's going to be a long process. It's going to be a steep learning curve for him and a lot of time in the gym this offseason for him to become that player. But we'll see, man. We had one win this past week. We haven't had a Pistons Talk player in the win in, man, dude, like 5 episodes, maybe even more. They beat the Indiana Pacers, thank God, 117-97. I'm going to go James Wiseman. It's going to be my quick, easy answer. 18 and 14 in 24 minutes with 1 assist. Don't know what else he did because this box score is only showing me so much. So it's James Wiseman with the double-double for the Detroit Pistons. I'm this close to saying Eugene Amarui, though, because he had, I believe, a career high was 17.
Yeah, I would probably go Wiseman, too. I think it's pretty impressive going against Isaiah Jackson, who torched the Pistons last time. Him and Jalen Smith, I don't know if you remember the last time we played the Pacers. They had I think they broke a franchise record for blocking 20 shots in a game because they were just swatting everything. But like I said, we didn't have James Wiseman on the team. I will probably give, James Wiseman the player of the win. Also, double-double, blocked a few shots and got the dub. So that is, that's good to see. And I'm sure James Wiseman was happy with the win because he does not like losing.
What about Corey Joseph, though? His flu game. Wasn't this his flu game, the 22-5-5?
I don't even
know.
It's sad that we didn't even recognize that.
As soon as I said it, I'm like, dude, he had his flu game. I forgot. Corey Joseph, Koja. Let's look ahead at this week for the schedule. There's only 2 games this week. They play – man, let me get back to this just real quick. They play not the Heat. They play the Hawks tomorrow in Atlanta, so we're going to see Saddiq Bey against the Pistons. That's going to be fun. He legitimately looks – he's their backup power forward, and John Collins, he has not played a ton. I think he's getting under 25 minutes. There might be a real shot where Saddiq Bey becomes the starting power forward in Atlanta. Wouldn't that be wild if it – I hope it happens for him, though. I'd be happy. And then we got the Pistons at the Raptors, so 2 games. How many wins do you see this week?
I don't know why, but I could see us beating the Hawks.
I hope we do. I hope we do.
Yeah, they're a mess defensively. I could see us. The Raptors is man. Every time we play the Raptors, it's good too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 1 win, and I think the win's gonna come from the Raptors.
Okay.
I think the Hawks game will be close too. Just because the Hawks, even though Quinn Snyder is there, they still don't really play defense. And Saddiq Bey could either drop 2 points or 50. There's no in between. We really don't know. But he has been shooting I think last time I checked 50% from 3. Because that's all he's doing is shooting threes like that. What do you know? A team actually knows how to use Saddiq Bey.
Okay. Do you think it's more of the team figured it out or Saddiq Bey wised up? Where he's like, all right, I better do this or I'm not going to get paid.
Well, I think the Hawks aren't trying to make him into this 3-level scorer. They're just kind of playing him into his strengths.
Dude, where the Pistons? I don't know. Dude, I can't put it all on the Pistons, man. I know they wanted to experiment with him, but he got tunnel vision. But I'm with you, dude. I think it's only 1 win. I want to say 2. If they win 2, this is the best week in Pistons basketball all season. If they win 2 straight games, it's the best week, and it's that's sad. But
Yeah, I kind of
Pistons,
want them to win too because you got to get out of that one spot, man. I do not want the worst record in the league because that just means we're getting the 5th pick.
I don't think they draft 2. I don't think we'll get into that later, I'm sure, at some point. I definitely think they get 1. I'm going to go ahead and say they get 1 win. I'm going to say they take the Hawks. I'm going to go opposite of you.
Okay.
I say they lose to the Raptors and beat the Hawks. But that's all we have for the schedule this week. Do we have any Q&A questions?
No, not really. We don't really have any, but I'm sure we'll have some. I mean, we can kind of talk about the Pistons and the Sadiq shit if you want for a minute until we do get some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I basically said a couple of minutes ago where I felt that the Pistons tried to make Sadiq into this 3-level scorer when he was just a 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
I put that on the coaching staff at the end of the day. Like, if you know Sadiq is a good 3-point shooter, why are you trying to make him, take it to the lane for a layup? Why are you trying to make him take these contested, 15 to 18 footer elbow jumpers? Like, if that's not his strength, I just don't get it. If it's for development, sure. But like, that's something you experiment in like the preseason or maybe a week or 2 into the season. Not a full like freaking 50 games, man. Like, to me, I look at the coaching staff and saying, he's a 3-point shooter. He's not Jimmy Butler. He's not Chris Middleton. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, but I think it's more on the player. Like, I think it's the coaching staff saying, hey, look, this is what we think you could become. We want to see you work on this part of your game. We're going to allow you to do it during the regular season. But I do think the coaching staff ultimately says, like, hey, look, this isn't working. We want you to go back to becoming the 3-point bomber you were that made you a household name in Detroit. But he got tunnel vision. I think it was more on Sadiq Bey of, getting in his own head, thinking like, okay, I could be one of these guys. I'm going to be this 3-level scorer. I'm going to keep doing it until I figure it out. I think it was more on Sadiq Bey. I can't blame the coaching staff for that. I think it's right of the coaching staff to want him to expand his game, but I think Sadiq Bey got tunnel vision and became, just the worst version of himself in his final season in Detroit.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Good teams play to player strengths. And I think the Pistons always do this. It's not even a Sadiq Bey thing. It seems like every year we see a player playing out of their comfort zone. Like when I think of the Andre Drummond era when Van Gundy got here, he tried making him into Dwight Howard when he had literally like no post moves. It's not even like a Sadiq Bey problem. I think it's just an organizational problem because they try to make guys play to their C and D minus parts of their game when they should really be focusing on their, B, A+ parts of their game and just develop that instead of develop something that they're never going to develop. Like we saw Andre Drummond shooting threes in the gym for like what? It seems like every summer. And like if he did take one, it was just lucky and it bounced off glass. Like I think that's more of my gripe with like the Pistons as a whole with their development coaches is they focus on stuff that they're never actually going to do in the game.
Yeah, I just think it was Sadiq Bey's tunnel vision. I think he got in his own head, and it cost him. That's it. I mean, I'm glad he's figuring out Detroit. I'm glad he's figuring out Atlanta, where he's becoming more of that catch and shoot player like he was, because I want him to get paid. I want him to collect checks in the NBA for a long time. It's just, I don't know. I mean, maybe I think you can blame the coaching staff and Sadiq Bey. I think it's a 50-50 type of thing. I think coaching staff, yeah. But also, the team was so bad. Like, why not experiment if you're Sadiq Bey? Why not go out and try to be that guy? You're not playing for anything. If anything, you're playing to find a guy to replace you. Because with the high draft pick, that's what they were doing. I mean, you're a professional athlete. There's someone coming for you every single season. So, Sadiq Bey, why not try to do more?
Yeah, I think Chuck Brewer said it the best. He said Sadiq Bey's rookie version was his best version, and I 100% agree. And his rookie version was shooting 3-pointers. Exactly what I said like 5 minutes ago. It's like if if he's a good 3-point shooter, then you don't really have to say, hey, you want to try scoring at all 3 levels? Well, we got a surprise for you. Like, I just don't get it, man. Like, honestly, it's more me just frustrated with the Pistons over probably the last 10 years of trying to force guys into something that they aren't.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it worked with Jeremy Grant. He came here, expanded his game. They probably thought they could do it again with Sadiq Bey. But again, I do think it comes down to Sadiq Bey just saying, hey, like he just got tunnel vision. I mean, there were so many bad drives. You can only control so much as the coach. You know, I mean, we saw games where they pulled him out and sat him for long stretches where you'd have people tweeting about it, saying, like, why is he not playing right now? Well,
Yeah.
because he was hurting the team. That's why. You know, I mean, even though the team wasn't that good, but
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. It's just, I don't know. I think it's more of my frustration with just the coaching staffs over the years where they try to turn guys into something that they aren't. It's just like, you never saw San Antonio like try to make Manu Ginobili into like a point guard. You know what I mean? He just came off the bench as a 6th man and accepted his role. Like, I think it's more of just an organizational standpoint where they try to force something and reinvent the wheel when they don't have to.
I think it's easier to fall into a role when your team is winning and you can see how your role is helping the team win. Because I think it would be kind of frustrating, like if your team, like, hey, we want you to come off the bench. Like I'm just saying this, just for instance, like we know you could start, but we want you to come off the bench, and then you're not winning games. Like, why am I sacrificing the minutes? Why am I sacrificing the shots? Why am I sacrificing potentially the money to come off the bench for your team and we're not winning? Like, why? How is this helping? Like, I think like when winning cures all, you know, anybody's willing to play a role when you're winning and contributing. So I don't know. It's a fun topic though with Sadiq Bey. Do you wish him the best though in Atlanta?
Yeah, I just don't think I'll be there next year. I mean, you're asking for DeAndre Hunter money, which is close to $100 million. Good luck. That's all I'll say. Good luck.
As long as he doesn't join the Miami Heat, that's all I ask for. Join any other team but the Heat.
Yeah, I don't know. He'll probably, like, dead ass, he'll probably go to the Central Division. He'll be like on the Bucks or like the Pacers or something like that.
The Bucks are a good fit for him, though. Just spacing that floor for Giannis.
That cannot be a real question. Scoot or Killian? Dude, no. What? I'm taking Scoot.
Yeah. I mean,
if you had to make a decision, yeah, they're picking Scoot, dude. Like, straight up, they're not picking Killian over Scoot. No franchise would.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like if it's a troll question or if No More Kings 1 thinks Troy Weaver's incompetent. I don't know. But yeah, Scoot Henderson over Killian Hayes.
Oh, it's probably Kings fans. I forgot. I'm a mortal enemy.
You got to have them to find success, man.
Yeah, I'm happy for them that they finally had success, but you got to act like you've been there before.
100%.
Honestly. We got a question from Banks, but it says kicking it with Chris. Looks like he changed his YouTube name. Let's say we get Victor. We got Cade, Ivey, Duran, Wiseman. If they all turn out what we think they are, how are we going to play all of them and not have how are we going to pay all of them and not have a OKC problem?
I think he means like when they had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden and Serge Ibaka. They ended up trading James Harden for Jeremy Lamb, I think, Steven Adams. But we've talked about this before. I mean, it's a great problem to have. And at that time, dude, you're gonna have to make some tough decisions, some very tough decisions. If all 5 of those guys pan out, you know, like that's a tough decision to find out because you can only keep 3 of them unless they take pay cuts.
Well, let's say you get Victor. So you're looking at a rookie scale contract. First overall picks make around $10 million. So you get Victor, you have Cade, he's making 10 million. Ivy's making around 7. Dern's making around 3. Wiseman's making, he was a second overall pick, and I think he's going to be making 12 and then 15. I mean, you can keep all of them in theory for maybe a year or two. I don't really think you can actually keep all of them. I think you will have the OKC problem. And the reason why you would have the OKC problem is because you have to have, 15 players on a roster. You kind of have to pick and choose which ones you want to keep. I just don't think you can keep all of them and all of them are happy, because obviously they all want to, get touches and get theirs. But I think if we're fortunate enough to get Victor, I think they would probably just roll with Victor, Cade, Ivy, Dern, and Wiseman, and kind of just, whatever happens.
Well, who would be the 3 you would keep from those 5? I would go Victor, Cade, and Ivy. I'm not even seeing Victor in the NBA. I'm going in blind, but those are the 3 I would keep.
Probably Victor, Cade, and Ivy if he had to pick one. But like I said, I just think the reason why OKC did what they did is because obviously the owner didn't want to go on the luxury tax. Don't know if Tom Gores would, but I don't know. He always says that if the team's good enough, he would go in the luxury tax, but we haven't seen a team good enough for him to go into the luxury tax yet. So,
yeah, good question, though. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I don't really think the Pistons are going to have that problem because I don't think they're getting Victor. That's just me.
Yeah, I still think Houston gets that number 1 overall pick. I really do.
I don't know. I think San Antonio gets it. You see that mural?
Yeah, I did see that. And that's just – no, see, you know what's really irritating me? You know how I said that Houston always had the luck of super tall, really skilled centers? People are saying that about San Antonio now. They're like, San Antonio they've always been drafting really tall players, David Robinson and Tim Duncan. No. You got to take it a step further. Ralph Sampson, 7'4", drafted by Houston. Yao Ming, 7'5", drafted by Houston. Victor Wembanyama, 7'3", drafted by Houston. That's the way it's going to go. The NBA wants him in a big market. They already pay to stream his games. They want him in a big market. What's a bigger market, Houston or San Antonio? It's Houston. Come on.
Is it though?
Bro, I'm pretty sure it's Houston. I don't know, though, but I'm confidently saying it's Houston. I think they're the bigger market.
Man, I don't know. Every time I think of San Antonio, I think of Charles Barkley.
I had the same thing on my mind.
Those big old women. Every time I think of the Spurs and I see Victor, I was just man. Charles Barkley's going to have a field day if he gets drafted by the Spurs.
I mean, he'll be according to Charles Barkley, he won't have a hard time putting on weight.
No. I don't know who's a bigger market, Houston or San Antonio. I feel like Houston's had more success recently, but Spurs have more championships. Well, obviously, but I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, watch Victor just go to a random team like the Pelicans or the Hornets or something like that.
Well, I was thinking about Charlotte too, going number 1, because now that Michael Jordan is about to sell a majority of his the Charlotte Hornets, maybe the NBA is like, dude, we're just going to gift draft. Charlotte has not had a number 1 overall pick since they've been in the NBA for a second time, since they've been the Bobcats.
Yeah, I mean, freaking wouldn't that be funny, though? Charlotte gets the first overall pick, and Mike's like, guess he's back.
Yeah, that would be really funny. Oh, man. No, I really do think he's going to Houston, though. I really do. And, yeah.
I think we can agree he's going to be playing in Texas.
Yeah. He will.
Or Orlando.
No, they're not giving him Orlando. He's not going to Orlando.
Dude, Orlando has 2 lottery picks. They got the Bulls pick from the Vucevic trade and their own.
Dude, watch them both. Watch both those picks fall out of the top 7.
That would be funny as hell.
You know what's going to happen.
Yeah, honestly. Dude, I can't wait. I think the draft lottery is in May, so we're a month and a half out of just seeing what happens. But, I mean.
Pistons still have the 5th best odds. I mean, the best odds, right, though?
Yeah, you said it. 5th pick.
Well, I really do think I really do think the Pistons either draft 3, 4, or 5.
Yeah, I need them to get out of that first spot because the last 3 drafts, the team that's had the second worst record has won the lottery.
Yeah. I can't go with that voodoo, though. I can't do that voodoo.
I mean, either, man. It's just, I don't know. Something tells me the NBA is just going to give us a giant middle finger like they usually do.
No, I think they're giving us the 3rd pick. I think they know. I seriously think the draft goes Houston, San Antonio, Detroit. That's how I think it plays out. Then I think Charlotte goes at 4. I think those are the 4 teams in the draft lottery.
I just think a random team just shoots up the ladder. I don't know why. It's just like, it's funny because the Pelicans could, like, they're sitting at 9 right now. They could shoot up the 1.
They could, but I just don't see that happening. They've had so many number 1 overall picks since the league finally sold that team.
Yeah, like I just tankathon and we fell to 5th.
Dude, 3, 4, or 5, man. I'm telling you. I'm gonna say 3 though. Is where that's the best. I have the best feeling about 3.
Yeah, so the tankathon spin I just did. I got San Antonio 1, Orlando 2, Charlotte 3, Washington 4, Detroit and Houston 5 and 6. That would just be like, honestly, like, hey, Houston to Detroit, quit tanking. I don't know, man. It's just,
I don't know. I'm still cool with the Pistons drafting at 5. There's some good prospects, but obviously the big gets are Victor W., Scoot, or Brandon Miller as of right now. I think those 3 guys are day 1 players. I think the Thompson twins, I don't think they're day 1 players, and that's why I'm afraid of drafting either of them.
I think Amin is as a defender. It's just both of them have to just become better shooters.
Yeah, that's the big thing. But I think Joris Walker could be, but I think he's more of an off-the-bench player when he first plays in the NBA, even though we've been spoiled these past couple of years with rookies starting day 1. But Cam Whitmore, he might be one of those guys that starts day 1, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well, we've been on for like an hour and a half and not really getting any questions, so thought we could just kind of wrap up the podcast. And why don't you tell the people where they can find it and how they can support it?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys for listening to the Pistons Talk Podcast. Do us a favor. Go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, and more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.
Later, guys.